mean, it has been a massive, massive offseason for sure for Howie. But the question I have for you guys is, should we be heaping credit or blame in this sense? You punt it basically on a guy that you drafted 21st overall just 2 years ago in Jalen Reagor, who, you know, some of the names of people who went after him. And by the way, I know you could do this with almost every pick where you could just say, look who went after him, blah, blah, blah. But just for the sake of this discussion, Justin Jefferson went right after him. We know that. Patrick Queen, the linebacker from the Ravens, went 28. Clyde Edwards-Helaire went 32nd. T. Higgins went 33rd. Michael Pittman went 34th. DeAndre Swift, 35. Jonathan Taylor, 41. Chase Claypool, 49. Just to name a few, okay? All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network on this Thursday. Barrett, Derek, Rob hanging with you. 3 hours of power. All right, so continuing the Eagles discussion here, guys, and specifically Howie, because yesterday, a lot of the discussion we've had the last, few days here, 2 days at least, has surrounded the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson trade, the CGJ. Although doesn't he like CJGJ? I don't know. It's a whole thing. Right. I got to get I just got rid of J-Jaw. Now I got to worry about this.
Right.
What are we doing?
Right.
Anyway, and look, props for being able to make that deal. And then he unloads, Reagor as well. And we're throwing a lot of praise his way. And it's been an amazing, amazing offseason of getting incredible talent. Yeah, right. Deion Taylor, by the way, they want back on the practice squad, so we'll see if he's able to get through waivers and they get him. But we've talked a lot about the AJ Brown type moves, the Kaiser White type moves, the Hassan Reddick type moves, James Bradbury, just to name a few. I mean, it has been a massive, massive offseason for sure for Howie. But the question I have for you guys is, should we be heaping credit or blame in this sense? You punt it basically on a guy that you drafted 21st overall just 2 years ago in Jalen Reagor, who, some of the names of people who went after him. And by the way, I know you could do this with almost every pick where you could just say, look who went after him, blah, blah, blah. But just for the sake of this discussion, Justin Jefferson went right after him. We know that. Patrick Queen, the linebacker from the Ravens, went 28. Clyde Edwards-Helaire went 32nd. T. Higgins went 33rd. Michael Pittman went 34th. DeAndre Swift, 35. Jonathan Taylor, 41. Chase Claypool, 49. Just to name a few, okay? Then you also look at it, they got rid of J-Jaw. Now, part of J-Jaw ended up getting you Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as well. But J-Jaw was a second-round pick. He was 57th overall. After him, DK Metcalf, David Montgomery, Devin Singletary, Terry McLaurin, our man CGJ also went. Yeah, he was the 105th pick in the 4th round that year. Davion Taylor was a 3rd rounder in 2022. So we're talking about, relatively high picks, one in the 1st round, one in the 2nd, one in the 3rd here from the last few years that are gone. And you essentially had to move these guys because they were contributing nothing. So is it more a situation of you shouldn't have screwed up the picks to begin with versus, okay, good job at least getting rid of them? Where do you guys fall on it?
You got to remember when they actually moved back in that draft, didn't they? To pick Jalen Reagor, or weren't they up higher? Weren't they right around 17 or something like that?
I don't know if they moved back in that one, Barrett. I thought they were going to move up to try to get CeeDee Lamb.
Yes, but Dallas swooped in early and picked him up, right?
Yeah. Yep. I'll check. I'm not sure they moved down. I'll check.
Yeah. You're right, man, because during that draft, I remember we were talking a lot about defensive back and wide receiver, and there was a bunch of guys like Jerry Jeudy in the draft. Nobody expected him to be that high. Henry Ruggs, we didn't think he was going to get drafted at 12 that high. This was kind of a weird draft too. C.J. Henderson, we knew he was going to get drafted high. That's one of the guys we were looking at. But it was funny. This draft, if you weren't going to get a quarterback, we wanted a DB, and we also needed a linebacker. Like we've always needed. We've never drafted that high a linebacker since when? When was the last time we had a first-round linebacker? I mean, this
Jerry Robinson, 1979.
So we had talked about. We knew they were never because Patrick Queen was there. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's he's lived up to it.
Yeah, he's a very good player for Baltimore, man. Very good.
But it was. I remember I broke down film on Kenneth Murray from Oklahoma, and I thought he was the prototype. He's the prototypical linebacker. In fact,
one of my favorite players.
He's with the Chargers right now and balling right now. That's why they feel comfortable enough to let White go. But he was just like drafted right after, like 2 picks after. Yeah, he went 23rd to the Chargers, and then after that, Brandon Ayuk balling. Then it was the big mix-up and the big controversy with Jordan Love going to the Packers. I just thought that at that time we needed either a stud corner or a stud linebacker. I didn't want to go with receiver, but we went with receiver anyways. And I definitely didn't want to go with Jalen Reagor. Not to say that Jalen Reagor was bad, because I thought he was a talent, but I didn't know how good of a talent he was going to be, because he didn't have a quarterback to really throw to him and really open up what he could do as a player. But I did see him on special teams be that player that I thought he was going to be here. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was magical in returning punts. He was that dude. Once he got the ball, that's when everything instincts took over. But I never saw him get to that point. He never got to the point where he just, athleticism and just his whole, his whole sense of how to play the game took over.
I think he lost confidence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the case. But yeah, he was the other guy in the Big 12 that I did a breakdown on. It's like, hey, yeah, this is CeeDee Lamb, but this is the other guy that we need to talk about. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
yeah. So I guess the question is, Derek, is the good far outweighing the bad? In other words, he's made some unbelievable acquisitions, signings, or trades, or whatever. He's also, killed it in a big way, I think, with the 21 draft and the 22 draft thus far. I mean, time will tell on 22. We need to see these guys get out there. But when you consider what went down last year, I mean, what you got out of your first rounder, Devontae Smith, what you got out of Landon Dickerson, what you got out of Kenneth Gainwell, what you got out of Milton Williams. I mean, boom, boom, boom. That's pretty darn good. And this year sets up, I think, to be good as well. There's that. There's all the moves that I kind of laid out early versus, okay, don't get overboard here because he's kind of cleaning up his own mess.
Okay. I would say give credit, because he openly admitted to us that he had to learn how to listen better to those around him. He went from being the smartest man in the room to understanding that it's okay to not be the smartest man in the room. Okay. Now, he took a team last year with those players you were talking about, and they found a way to have a winning record and to get to the playoffs, which is valuable experience for a young group of inexperienced guys.
Right.
You look at his last 2 drafts. He finally honed in on the SEC. He finally started listening to other people. He made some incredible moves, wheeling and dealing, moves that have shocked us, from A.J. Brown to Bradbury to now the safety from the Saints.
Yeah.
So I say we'd have to give him credit. There are a lot of GMs. You look at the previous GM in New York who finally got jettisoned out of the Gettleman, who finally got jettisoned. He kept the same line of thinking, and it never panned out for him. Okay. So they had to go in a completely different direction. When Andy Reid first got to Kansas City, they had to change the complexion of how they drafted. Look at how they draft now.
And he let Brett Veach do his job.
Exactly. He got out of the way
and
let him do his job. Exactly. No question about it.
Yep.
And I think Howie learned his lesson well. I think he's recovered, because we sit here, as you just mentioned, Rob, we sit here giving him rave reviews for the picks that he made. Landon Dickerson, Devonta Smith, the kids they've drafted this year. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of assessing how good they are, that will be determined by the one-loss record at the end of this season. We can only speculate. The product has to improve from what it was a year ago. And we can only sit here and speculate week to week, building up to beyond the 17-game regular season. But as we sit here right now, I have to give Howie credit for being man enough to admit that he needed to do a better job listening to people around him. And look at where the roster is right now. It is arguably, and it's talked about not just locally but nationally, one of the better rosters in the National Football League. Now, obviously, the games aren't played on paper, but as we look at it right now in terms of talent, youth, depth at certain positions, the most two strategic positions on a football team, offensive and defensive line, this team is second to none in the league as we look at it right now.
I'm a resounding yes. I would much rather a boss admit a mistake than compound one. Like, to me, we all know it wasn't working with Arcega-Whiteside. We all know it wasn't working with Reagor. Rather than hide behind, hey, we just can't do it for cap purposes, etc. And part of it was like pride that we took these guys so high, and I don't want to admit to this. I would much rather you cut ties and let them roll. I really would. Like, it's easier to do. I'll give you an example. We've talked about Alex Leatherwood, how he was cut by the Raiders, right? He was a first-round pick last year. Those guys inherited him, right? That group did not draft him. That was still Gruden and Mayock. It's easier to do that and pull a plug when you're taking it over. It's not a good look for the organization, but it's easier to do. Howie is the one who drafted these guys. It was on his watch, yet he's still willing to admit, all right, it was a mistake. Let's move on from it. And not only did you move on, you got value out of Arcega-Whiteside somehow, some way, which you partially moved to Wheel and get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So therein lies a real ability there to maneuver this thing. I give him props. I think he has learned. You're never going to be perfect here. You could go through any team and say, oh my God, they took so-and-so here. Look at what went after him. Howie had a rough couple years there. I also think one other thing, and I'm not making an excuse for him. 2020 for everybody was crazy. You couldn't scout the way that you were accustomed to.
No.
There was a lot of things that went down. Now, that's not to say that a lot of teams got it right too, but that I think affected a lot of teams in some ways. So I think there's way more good happening. I think he's a different person. He has a different approach. And I think he's more willing to listen to people. And I think that's a big part of this.
And Rob, you look at the players you talked about taking in the second round. You can say 31 other teams passed on those players also.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because a lot of those players could have very easily have been first round picks. I bet teams are kicking themselves. They overlooked DK Metcalf and let him slip to the second round.
Yep.
You know, and it goes, it's par for the course. Nobody's 100% accurate. The draft is a roulette wheel. You spin the wheel. Look at how many first round picks end up being bust in the National Football League at every position.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a hit or miss. You know, you do your homework. Your scouting staff does the homework. You think you have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. You set your board in terms of priority. And sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. You know, I assume that the Eagles with this young group of players is going to work out more times than not with the course that Howie set himself on now.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Howie made mistakes in the past, kept making mistakes in the past. He learned his lesson well. Even Grandpa had a say. But I said it yesterday in the show, and I've said it many times between May and now. This was the perfect storm for Howie to get out from under Reagor and Whiteside, and nobody bat an eye. In years past, had this happened and he gave up on him after a couple of years, this team would have been raining down fire on Howie Roseman for making a mistake.
Absolutely.
But because to me, it was like a cloak and dagger move. You got people jacked up when you got A.J. Brown. You got people jacked up when you got Bradbury. You got them jacked up when you got a safety. And when we found out that J.J.'s gone, Reagor's gone, look at how many people are applauding Howie making a move to get rid of him, to make way. A few years ago, that wouldn't have happened. People would have been trashing his organization left and right. No question about it.
But you still got it. I mean, yes, I'm in the same mindset also. You know what I'm saying? You were pushing forward. You saw the mistakes you made. You cut bait, and you went on with it. But there's some damning mistakes that, you know, we got to look back on. Like Donnell
You said about every team. Every team.
But, bro, I'm talking about entire drafts are not on the team. Like 2 entire drafts are not on this team right now.
Yeah.
The entire draft? I mean, come on, man. We're talking about 3 or 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm. I think, you know, Barrett, what we've seen, I don't mean the last 2 years, but what we've seen prior to that is nailed a couple real late ones, like Mailata types, right?
Yes.
Like, whoa, oh my God, unbelievable.
You can't make your living on doing that, though, man.
Right, but I'm saying too many misses high.
Yeah,
like too many high misses. Which,
you're right. Absolutely.
You know, and the one other like postscript to it that you have to include here is he segued pretty quickly out of a disaster not all that long ago. You know, Doug's last year, it was like Deshaun Jackson again. We were rolling that out. Alshon Jeffrey's still here. You know, the receiving core, I'm just giving an example.
Wentz lost his mind.
One position. Wentz lost his mind, and it looked doomed. Like, they looked doomed. He pivoted out of that pretty hard in a good way. And they're still sitting here next year with 2 picks in the first round.
That's right.
Well, you know, also you got to look at this. They were able to. One thing he's very good at, I think, is free agency.
Yeah,
he does a damn good job free agency, but he doesn't until the last 2 years pick high and get value out of those high picks. This is, to me, he's starting now, and he's jumped over the bridge now, and he's now cooking with hot grease, bro. He's making it happen now. But there were so many picks before then that were just so bad, man. It was, I mean, when I say bad, it made me really bad.
Well, I hope it was, you know, look, we need a wake-up call here. We got to change the way that we're going about this because this isn't working. And I think part of it is what we discussed a lot on the show. Let's dig into the SEC, man. Let's dig into Alabama. Let's dig into some of these Georgia, whatever. I mean, these teams that are the big time, there's a reason why these teams are winning national championships. They crank out a lot of talent, man. These dudes could play. So it's not a coincidence. So I think he learned some from that as well. Go dig into the great programs. It's not to say you can't get guys from other places, but
right. Like,
I think he's also really good.
When your boss tells you, why don't we have more of these SEC players on our team? When Grandpa says, how come you keep overlooking the SEC players? You better start taking notice and listening.
You know what the irony is? Howie did his undergrad at Florida.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing he's really good at, guys, and I mean this, he smells blood. Like he knew Chauncey Gardner Johnson, the contracts weren't going well there, the talks. He sniffs AJ Brown's unhappy and they can't reach a deal. And he swoops in. And it's what smart executives do. And that's one of his other real strengths is reading a room. Okay, who's having some problems here? All right, I'm gonna give Tennessee. Let me give Tennessee a call, see what's going on. All right, let me hit up the Saints. I've dealt with Mickey Loomis before. He's very good at that too, which is a big part of this job, a big part of it, for sure. So I think it is. I think it is interesting, an interesting discussion too, because it's not as cut and dry as, oh my God, it's all sunshine and rainbows and butterflies and all that good stuff.
It is right now.
No, it is.
How was he able to do this though, man? How was he able to get that much value out of these guys? I mean, it's ridiculous how good these guys are right now, man.
Well, the ability to Barrett I keep saying this, but I'll say it again. The ability to not just get guys who fill a need, who are okay, who are borderline starters. You got like stars, like impact, like AJ Brown, Hassan Reddick. These guys are major upgrades. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's a huge upgrade from Anthony Harris. Bradbury, from whatever the Eagles were rolling out there as their second corner last year, is a massive upgrade.
On paper, yes.
On paper, yes.
Yep.
On paper.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, before we start the season, they look a lot better. If you're sitting there and you're going through some of these other teams and you look at what their moves were in the offseason, like I was thinking about when you were saying that, Barrett, when you were talking about Detroit, like you were looking at last year and then you're looking at Hard Knocks, and I'm thinking, I know it's Detroit, but I'm thinking like, all right, well, what are the significant upgrades that they made? And not a lot, right? I mean, they're banking on just getting better, second year in a system.
Yep.
Hey, obviously Hutchinson's a big piece to what they're going to be able to do, all those. But I mean, Howie was able to swing for the fence in a lot of these, and I do think he hit it out of the park in a lot of ways.
Oh, there's no question. The way this man is able to wheel and deal and fit people under the cap when they don't have much cap space. I always find a way to make cap space. Mm-hmm. He's one of the best in the business at doing that. He's a master Houdini in terms of making things appear when it doesn't look like they can appear. Yeah, that's why I said. When you brought the topic up, you got to give him credit. A lot of people don't learn their lesson. They believe in their system, and they're gonna run this system down an organization's throat until you get them out of there. Howie adapted, just like Nick Sirianni adapted last season. Howie learned how to adapt and become better at his job. And so you got to give him credit for that.
You got to, man. And once again, I give him credit for free agency. How many times do we look at, the number one free agent and be like, oh, no, we can't get him. And what does he do? He goes out and gets him. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about quality free agents he brought him. He says he wants to say about Alshon towards the end, but Alshon for 2 or 3 years was one of the top receivers in the league.
Yes, he was. A matchup nightmare.
Exactly. You look what he did at the running back position, going out getting LeGarrette Blount. I forget the kid from down
Ajayi.
Jay Ajayi.
Season. Yep.
I mean, he had his tire was half full, but when it was 3/4 away full, he was balling for us.
Yep.
Chris Long had him in the fold. Made a player out of him.
Patrick Robinson.
He almost had a perfect offseason in that sense.
Corey Brown.
He gets Foles. Well, he gets Foles.
Yep.
Foles has to step in and play. He gets Chris Long. Chris Long has a huge season for them. He has Patrick Robinson steps in, has a huge interception in the NFC Championship game, which flipped that game on its ear. By the way, the quarterback is hit by Chris Long. So he's hit by Long. Robinson picks it off. The Super Bowl, Corey Clement undrafted. He scores a touchdown in the
100
Super Bowl.
yards receiving.
Yeah.
You forget Corey Brown. Say what you want to say. He was the glue in that defense, which allowed Malcolm to do a lot of the stuff he was doing. Malcolm could walk around and run around and do whatever he wanted to do because he had veteran guys there. He didn't do much as far as tackles and stuff like that, but he was helping around. Hey, you got to get over there, making sure guys are doing the right things. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's done a lot.
Yeah.
It's just hard for me to get past Donnell Pumphrey. I know I need to stop saying his name, man. I know, man. I do, man. But
that's one of those bad. Well, look, remember with Jalen Hurts, the advice that he tried to give all of us.
Yeah,
sometimes you don't look at it in the bowl; you just flush it.
Yeah. Don't even look back at it.
That's Donnell Pumphrey, man. Just don't look back.
You take the deuce and just let it go. Just let it fly.
Oh, man. See, did we really go to this level?
He said it. We didn't say it.
I know he did. I know.
You know what? He's like low key funny, even though he's not trying to be sometimes.
Yes.
Jalen Hurts. That one was like.
I mean,
really,
just right under. Just right up. I mean, it just flew right under the radar.
Like, come on, man.
A deuce reference. He dropped a deuce reference, and I'm like,
drop the deuce and just keep rolling.
Damn. But he's dead serious when he says it.
That's nasty. That's nasty.
When you hear it, you're like, oh my God, man. Okay. So yeah, that was. I thought it was an interesting discussion there for sure. Did you guys see this too? So the Eagles reportedly put a claim in for Kellen Mond, the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But the way it works is the worst teams get the higher choice.
Yep.
So Cleveland had a higher choice than the Eagles did last year.
Yep.
So Cleveland grabbed him. A smart move by Cleveland to grab him. I
Absolutely.
think there's something there with him, even though it didn't work out for him. But I liked him in college a lot. But he probably would have been Ian Book had they been able to get him. But they weren't, and that's why Book ends up getting some. Book's wearing number 19, by the way. I saw him in practice today for what it's worth.
That's another one of those ugly numbers you talk about.
19 is not a great. I like it as a receiver number, but not a quarterback.
I don't like that number at all. I wish.
I don't mind it on a receiver.
19,
I don't like it.
29, 39, 49.
19 reminds me of Bernie Kosar with the Browns.
Right.
He looked like a praying mantis out there. He was like tall and like he was effective. I'm not saying that.
Helmet looked too big for his head.
Those uniforms suck. Cleveland's uniforms are terrible. No offense to your brother, Barry, but come on.
Yes, offense to him.
Take offense, yeah. But yeah, that's just for what it's worth. That's the number that he's wearing. All right, so when we come back, we're gonna get into a bunch of other stuff. We'll update you on what's happening with practice today. Who the heck's returning punts? Yeah.
Before you go to break, you ready to go to break right now?
Okay, no, go ahead.
You go to break. Something this is interesting.
Yeah.
So it just came across C.J. Stroud, the quarterback for Ohio State.
Yes.
Now we talk about these NILs and players' ability to make money.
Name, image, likeness. Yeah, where you get paid. Yeah.
He just got the entire Ohio State team $500 gift cards from Express so they can get game day uniforms. I bet you can game day suits. You know, a lot of these kids can't afford suits.
Oh yeah,
no question.
Now think about how many players are on Ohio State's football team. 90 players.
Dude, that's a lot in college. That's an awesome move by CJ Stroud.
$500. That's a good gift to give your teammates. Well, most of them will never see the field this year.
Instead of just saying, and Barry, I know you got to hop off, dude. If you got to go, don't worry about it. But instead of just, pulling a move, and Barrett's coming back, by the way, he's just stepping off for 1 second. But instead of just saying, I'm going to get as much as I can get for me, you take care of your boys there. That's cool. Take care of his
boys. That's right.
That's a good move.
That's leadership right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of the beauty of the NIL. You can do that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Look, I don't fault these guys to get as much money as you can get, period. Okay. But if you can take care of your guys think how that, not that the offensive line didn't love him already, but think about the way those guys are like, oh man, this dude's a leader. We got this guy's back.
I mean, just think about it, Rob. Take $500 and multiply that, but let's say 80 players. 80. Think about how much money that is.
That's a ton.
And he secures it for his entire team.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's unbelievable. I know we were talking Eagles, but I saw that come across. I said, we got to talk about this. This is crazy.
I love that. I love that, Derek. That's awesome. That's awesome. Wow. All right. So we come back. We'll dig into a little bit what's going on today. We'll ask the question, who's returning punts? I don't know if you've seen Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
My man has been in the weight room. Okay. So we'll show you a little picture of Devontae as well and what he's looking like now. And which Eagles receiver, speaking of Devontae, Derek, will lead them in receiving yards and touchdowns. AJ, Devontae, you can throw Goddard in there if we want to count the tight ends. We'll do all that when we get back. Don't go anywhere. Barrett's going to be back in a little bit as well. So Derek Gunn, Barrett Brooks, Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's talk about Pro Action Restoration. If you're not familiar with Pro Action Restoration, they are the people to call if you have any kind of water, smoke, fire, mold damage to your home, to a property that you own, to your office building, whatever the case may be. They're on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to assist. Their crew is amazing. I can tell you from personal experience, my parents had flooding in their house from bad rains, and they're having an issue with water just kind of backing up into their finished basement a few years back. They were obviously older folks, upset. I called Pro Action. They got over there on a Saturday. They cleaned it up, and the place was spotless. The price was reasonable. The crew was great. And, from there on out, I've been trying to tell everybody I know that they are the people to go to. They're licensed, bonded, fully insured. They've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. Pro Action will work in conjunction with your insurance company. And again, it could be any of the above: water, fire, smoke, mold remediation, you name it, they can handle it. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or online at proactionrestoration.com. That's proactionrestoration.com.